Looks like the Red Sox new second baseman probably won't be ready to go for opening day. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and man, we were doing so well, weren't we? Every single report coming out about a Red Sox injury appeared to be pretty minor. Most of the people that we did on our injury report are already back in spring training games, but of course that couldn't last forever. In fact, it only lasted about a week because now we're getting injury news about Vaughn Grissom that could have him missing some time at the beginning of the season. Obviously, this isn't great, so what we are going to do in today's video is we're going to break this down. We're going to talk about Vaughn Grissom's latest injury news, what it is, how long it could take for him to get back on the field, what this is going to do for his season, and how this is going to impact the 2024 Red Sox. But before we get into that, we are on the road to 10,000 subscribers. We're getting pretty close now. You guys have been incredible. So if you're new here and you want to help us get there, make sure you've hit that subscribe button. We talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start by breaking down the injury itself and the news there before we get into what effects this injury might have. This morning, it was announced in a presser with the media by Alex Cora that Vaughn Grissom has officially diagnosed with a groin strain, to which he added very specifically his status for opening day is in doubt. Now, this isn't exactly fantastic news. What's interesting about this injury is that it's different than what he was originally diagnosed with. About a week ago, we did our Red Sox injury report, and in there, we talked about how Alex Cora had mentioned Vaughn Grissom had tweaked his hamstring a little bit. This clearly probably is part of that and ended up being a groin strain after all, which has some levels to it. Because like we talked about when we talked about Brian Mata's injury, there are different ways that you can strain a groin. There's grade 1 all the way up to grade 3. The best sort of outcome for this situation, in my opinion, is that this ends up being just a grade 1 strain because that only takes about 4 weeks recovery time, which would only have him missing just a couple of games into the regular season, hopefully back within the first week of regular play. However, there is a worst case scenario here in that it's not just a grade 1 strain, it ends up being a grade 2 or a grade 3, which takes upwards of 2 to 4 plus months to get over. That would have Vaughn Grissom missing some significant time and would be a massive impact on the Boston Red Sox. But before we go and hit that panic button and start running around like our hair's on fire, there is something I want to take out of what Alex Cora said that leads me to believe that this might be towards the grade 1 side as opposed to the grade 2 or 3 side, and that is the fact that he very specifically said opening day in doubt, right? If this was a more serious issue, Alex Cora probably would have come out and said, yeah, he's going to miss some time. He's not going to be able to start the season with the team. The fact that he came out and he said very specifically his opening day is in doubt leads me to believe that this is on the lighter end in terms of a strain that you could have, and hopefully this means that he's not off the field for that significant amount of time than we talked about with the grade 2 or grade 3 strain. Still, this is a bit of a scary situation in my opinion, not only because we don't entirely know exactly what grade it is, regardless of what Alex Cora is saying and what we can pull out of that. It could end up being at some point that he injures it a little bit more trying to get back and it ends up being a grade 2 or grade 3 and he ends up missing some really significant time here, but also because groin strains tend to linger a bit. Yes, it only takes 4 weeks for you to get back onto the field, but you end up feeling that groin strain for a pretty decent amount of time, and that could affect how he plays when he gets back. So in my opinion, yeah, this is a bit of a scary thought, and also I think this is going to have a pretty decent impact on what the Red Sox are trying to do this year for a couple of different reasons. The first reason is obviously that Grissom was an integral part of the Red Sox plan going into 2024. It was clear that the plan was for him to be the everyday second baseman for the foreseeable future, but just as important in my opinion was what he brings to this lineup. The Red Sox have a ton of right-handed bats right now in the everyday lineup that are pretty strikeout heavy. Trevor Story, even when productive, even during his best years, struck out a pretty decent amount of the time. Tyler O'Neill, pretty much the exact same way, and Connor Wong strikes out a ton. Grissom brings that balance to the lineup because he's very contact forward, which is going to be important because it allows for this lineup to have a bit more versatility. Grissom, towards the bottom of this lineup, could be a really big producer with the Boston Red Sox if he's able to hit the way he hit in the minor leagues last year, as well as his first season in Major League Baseball, you're talking about one of the more heavy producing players on this team and in this lineup. It makes the lineup a whole lot deeper. It makes the lineup a whole lot more versatile, and losing that is obviously going to have a big effect on how the Red Sox produce, especially in the early goings of the season, depending on how much time he's out. But in my opinion, there's another impact this is going to have specifically on Vaughn Grissom that might be even more impactful to take a look at. It's because Vaughn Grissom isn't going to get a normal spring training. We've seen it pretty recently what the effects of not having a normal offseason could look like, whether that be from the pitching side with guys like Garrett Whitlock, who spent all last season essentially rehabbing into spring training and then missing some time at the beginning of the season, what that looks like. We've seen it from the positional side of things with Trevor Story in his first year with the Red Sox. He got that shortened spring training and it affected how he came in to the 2022 season. So because we've seen this before, we know that there's a difference between being 100% healthy and ready to come back and being 100% ready as a baseball player. In my opinion, those are two different things, and this is especially relevant to a guy like Vaughn Grissom, who this was supposed to be his first full legitimate season at the big league level. Obviously, he spent time at the big league level with the Atlanta Braves, but it was never in a projected everyday starter role for the course of a 162 game season. Getting as many reps as humanly possible during spring training was going to help him really get accustomed and ready to go for the regular season. It would have allowed him to get his feet underneath him and get him used to being an everyday starter with a new team, a new city, and in his first full season at the major league level, now he's just kind of getting thrown into it, right? He's just sort of going to be thrown into the fire a bit at some point during this season, whether it be 3 games after the season starts or a month after the season starts. In my opinion, it doesn't really matter because either way, he's going to be missing spring training. And to me, this is the biggest impact of all because we don't know what he's going to look like when he gets back. And that's a really interesting situation for the Red Sox to be in. Having a young player like this not be able to get acclimated to the regular season before the regular season starts could go a whole lot of different ways. And with him having to be such an integral part of what the Red Sox are trying to do, this to me is the scariest part of all of this. Now, the Red Sox do have some options to cover him while he's out. You've got, in my opinion, the most obvious solution here is you just have Pablo Reyes start every single game. You know Pablo Reyes is going to give you that solid defense at second base, and you know he's going to give you a good at-bat. It's not going to be the most productive at-bats in the world, but he's going to be a tough out, and he was a hit machine at some points last year, right? At some point, we actually made a video about Pablo Reyes being the spark plug of the Boston Red Sox. Last year, he didn't have a super productive season in terms of OPS, which was a 97, about 3% below league average production, but he had a 287 average, a 339 on base percentage, and a 377 slug, which is perfectly adequate for being towards the bottom of this lineup, especially with his contact ability as well. So you do have a fairly solid replacement. It's not like this is going to be a massive hole on the Red Sox, especially if Vaughn Grissom isn't out for a super long period of time. You've also got guys like Manuel Valdez, who over this offseason has really been working on his defense, and so far this spring he looks a lot more sustainable at second base defensively, which is a good sign. So now you can mix and match a little bit, at least until Vaughn Grissom comes back, and you also are going to see maybe a potential possibility of a guy like Nick Sogard being able to fill in as a depth role early on in this season, possibly taking over what Pablo Reyes was going to be. Now, this all depends on how long Vaughn Grissom's really going to be out for. If it's only a couple of days, you probably won't see too much of a change in the Red Sox roster, but if he does end up having to be out for a month or a couple of months, I think this gives these guys like Sogard, like Meadroth, or like Jamie Westbrook opportunities to possibly crack the big league club at some point over the next couple of years. So it just made spring training interesting as well, that we're seeing the effects of a Vaughn Grissom injury basically all over this team in really interesting ways. I think overall, when we're looking at this, it just kind of sucks, right? It's just not fun to talk about, but I don't think it's the end of the world just yet. Again, I still think there's a pretty high chance he only misses a couple of days at the beginning of the season. It's lucky that it happened when it happened sort of towards the beginning of March and not towards the end as we get towards the season, because then it probably would have been a legitimately significant amount of time. Right now, at least, it's not for a significant amount of time, and that's going to be super important. But again, I go back to the fact that this young player who is going to miss an entirety of spring training. What is he going to look like when he comes back? In my opinion, this is the biggest impact of everything. Can he get tossed into the fire and thrive, or is it going to take a while for him to get his feet under him in an everyday role, which honestly the Red Sox can't really afford right now. Overall, again, I don't think this is the end of the world. It just sucks that a young, exciting player that you got over this offseason, one of the highlights of this really slow, kind of quiet Red Sox offseason that many people were upset about, he was one of the highlights, and so for him to be injured and not start the regular season, it's just no fun for everybody. And plus, the Red Sox have had injury issues over the last couple of years, and this going into 2024, to me, just isn't a good sign, and I'm praying this is as bad as it gets for this team going into the season. But this is just my opinion, so let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think about it? What do you think about the latest Red Sox injury news? How do you think this affects Vaughn Grissom? How do you think this affects the Boston Red Sox? And what are your thoughts about the actual injury itself? Let me know all your thoughts on the Grissom injury in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, again, fighting for that 10K right now, so if you're new here and you made it to the end, might as well hit that subscribe button, help us get there. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Really does help these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.